Welcome to this episode of Sunny Silver Linings. Sunny's guest today is Dr. Mandeep Rai Dhillion, international best-selling author of The Values Compass. In this episode, they chat about what the inspiration is behind her newest book, her travel experiences while learning about different cultures, and the greatest lessons she's learned along the way. And now, your host, the founder and CEO of IT by Design, Mr. Sunny Kela. Over to you, Sunny.
I have a very special guest today, Dr. Mandeep Rai Dhillion. She's joining me today to talk about leadership, and we will be talking about her book, The Values Compass, what 101 countries teach us about purpose, life, and leadership. And I have this book as well, Mandeep, and so thank you for sending this book, and I appreciate it. And I'm very excited about this conversation because it's all about purpose, life, and leadership. And thank you so much for joining me today.
You're very welcome. And I know that's exactly what you stand for. That's why I'm joining you.
Thank you. And so let's start with my first question, Mandeep. What inspired you to write this book?
So many things, actually. One of the big factors was the fact that while I was doing my MBA, which was across London Business School, Harvard Business School, and MIT, there was one professor I would consult with and work with on a weekly basis. It was kind of like an office hour. His name is Nitin Noria. And a lot of the back of the work that we were doing around values, he was then elected and selected as the Dean of Harvard Business School for the next 10 years. But even before that, we knew very much that values was crucial. It was fundamental to businesses, to us as individuals. It's how our subconscious operates. So imagine at around 2008 to 2010, when the financial crisis had hit the world, businesses were synonymous. Businessmen or women were seen as like used car salesmen. It wasn't seen that they had values as such. And whereas other professions, like in law, you might take an oath and say you stand for the letter of the law above, your own profit or gain, or in medicine that you hopefully are standing for the patient above and beyond your own profit or gain. Could we say in business that we're standing for the benefit of all the stakeholders, not just the shareholders and not just ourselves? Could we say that we're standing for the supply chain, the environment, the consumer, and all the gamut of the ecosystem that goes into what a good business is? And I think that when a business or when an individual in a business is able to say that or take an oath to that effect, you have much more confidence, either as an employee or as a customer or as any part of that ecosystem. And if you're not able to say that, then perhaps we need to reconsider, or we need to think about our values. And so we really took this firstly to business schools and to people who were graduating in business. Then we started to think, well, what would happen if we took it to the World Economic Forum and had young global leaders take this oath? And so we started off with those people who were being employed, or those people who were young, like under 40s. But then what would happen if the C-suite, like the eldest, the people who are really running the companies, took an oath like this? How would it transform a company? And so through that process, we began to realize how fundamental values are and what a transformative difference it makes. But then why would you stop at companies, I thought? Individuals, we're all making our decisions according to our values. Countries are formed according to their values. It's any group, essentially. And a group can be, whether it's a school, whether it's a company or a country, that concentric circles of all the groups that it makes up of, values are informing us all the way, but fundamentally they're informing our day-to-day decisions. So that's where it really sprang from. And the more I got involved in this, I went on to do a PhD in the subject, the more I delved into this, the more I could see that it's I remember doing my undergrad to try and understand the way the world works. It was in politics, economics, philosophy. And the more I can see that it actually works and is run through our values.
Yeah, no, that's and going through this book, I'm like, and it is so true. We have operations, Mandeep, in US. This is where we're based out of, and then in Philippines and India. And I always kind of, I started learning Philippines last year, and I'm like, it's all about family. And when I looked at your book, and it says family, and I'm like, so understanding these values, it helps you as a leader. What that tribe, which is ITBD tribe in Philippines, what do they value, so that I can lead them based on that understanding as well. So it was very helpful for me. And my question to you is, did you have to go through all these countries to learn this? I mean, how did you kind of 101 countries and really boiling everything down to one word? I mean, it's probably a lot of effort. So talk to me a little bit about how did you do this?
So firstly, I love your example about the Philippines. It's exactly right that if we're running a company or if we're dealing with individuals, which we all are, especially in this I don't know if we want to call it post-pandemic, but especially in this new world where we're interacting with people on a daily basis. Like, you can look at you and I, right? We're talking across the Atlantic. Yeah. There is so much more global interaction, and the more we're aware of what drives one another. It could be the person sitting opposite you at the next desk, or it could be the person on the other side of the world. Either way, if you know what's driving them and you can understand them better, the relationships you form, and therefore the business or anything you conduct, whether it's creative or otherwise, will be much better as a result. And then to answer your question really directly, how did I go about it? Yes, I visited every single one of those 101 countries. And now actually, since then, the book won the Business Book of the Year in Diversity, Equality, Inclusion. And I had a little, wow, oh my goodness, I'm getting an award in this, but is it really completely inclusive or completely diverse? And although it is equal in the sense that every value is equally important, and there's no sense of like the East or the West or the South or the North being better than anywhere else. Like, every country is seen as equally valuable. I didn't have every country included. So now I've been to over 180, and very soon the whole world will be included. And then I can say, hand on heart, yes, it's completely inclusive and completely diverse. But it is really important to me to have that sense of integrity and to have firsthand experience. Otherwise, it's just a book from a book, right? It would just be research, and that's not the point of this. The point, when you read the book and you delve into it, it should feel like you are there experiencing that level of respect that you see in Japan. You're in the Philippines and you can see how family drives decisions. Mm-hmm. That you should feel like that if you put that level of importance in family, how would it shape your life? By putting yourself in another person's shoes, you're then able to put that element into your life and see, and then it becomes something that matters to you.
Now, I have one more question for you. What is the greatest lesson you have ever learned in your life? A life lesson.
Okay. Just to build on what you were saying firstly about having those values, you find that your team actually works a lot better, like you were saying, much more cohesive with one another. But you also find that the team works better because they're able to really appreciate one another for their strength, for what they value, rather than looking at the gap or looking what they don't have or looking at their inadequacy. That already transforms a team. So that makes a huge, huge difference. And then to answer your question of what is a huge life lesson or what have I learned? Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness, there are so many. I think one that's relevant to this that we're talking about right now is that often we don't realize that we're being driven by our values, that it's almost like a gut reaction, and it takes over without us realizing. So when you're able to do this exercise, or able to put yourself in this position where you actively choose, you're in a much more powerful position than 99.9% of the people who are being pushed and pulled and drawn and dragged according to their values, but haven't even realized what they are or haven't actively chosen them. So for example, let's say excellence is really important to you. Then without you realizing, you will go to the nth degree. You won't say, oh, 80-20 is enough, or you won't even use words like good enough, or it's hard for you to settle because you've decided excellence is most important. And then you can get to this point where you really burn out, or you push yourself too far, or you push your team too far, maybe. And rather than being able to recognize that in yourself and maybe bring out the best in your team and bring out the best in you, because you've recognized excellence is important, but you also know how to balance that. Or you've recognized excellence is important, but you also know that there is something that's good enough. And actually, excellence is 80% rather than 100%, because that last 20% can be a killer. Or, I mean, there's so many ways that you can make that excellence work for you in a positive way. But if you haven't recognized it and always push a little bit too far, that same thing can become a sabotaging factor for you. That same excellent value can become your Achilles heel, can become your dark side, your shadow side, or always get you into trouble. Not because it's a bad thing, but because it's just gone a little bit too far and you haven't been aware of it each and every time. So the power of the awareness of these values, which I think people learn the hard way. People learn when it goes too far, or when their value is violated, or when, when you were talking about how when you hire and you hire according to your values, how beautiful that is. But equally, if a company's not aware and it's hiring not according to our values, how wrong it can get. So often we learn these lessons, including me. I've learned all of these lessons the hard way. And the aim is for the people who I can help, that they don't have to learn it the hard way. Let it be an empowering tool for you rather than a painful journey.
No, yeah, no, well said. And it is really important for us to kind of overall understand, understanding what our values are, and then being intentional about kind of really adopting those in our life, and kind of calibration of mindsets and behaviors, right? Because it's a journey, it's progress, that 80-20 that you mentioned. So when we are intentional about understanding ourselves at a deeper level, and then make progress, then so there's more gain focus, and and you don't push yourself or your team too far that it becomes a liability for you. And no, thank you so much for coming to my podcast and sharing, your book, and also so much what you have done. I don't know anyone else, Mandeep, what you have done, where they have kind of really gone to all these different countries to learn about culture and core values, and then sharing that very powerful information where you can adopt this in the business and your personal life, overall, just understanding this world better. And it has a very, very high impact in many different aspects of our lives. And thank you for your contribution to the world.
You're very, very welcome. Thank you for your contribution, and thank you for giving us a chance to be able to think about what's operating us, so that we can actively choose something that works for us, rather than just being driven by either our past or knee-jerk reactions.
Thank you so much. All right. Okay. Let's.
Annie, you did that well. You did that well, though.
Mandeep, thank you so much for joining me today, and we are so excited about you coming to our annual gala this year, on April 1st. And you are our keynote speaker this year, and we are very excited about your keynote. So can you talk to our members, Sixth Chamber of Commerce members? What is your message for them before coming? And yeah, so what are you planning to talk about?
I think my message is simply that if you're interested to improve yourself, whether it's even just 1% every day, if you're interested in lifelong learning, growth, your self-development, your personal development, and your professional development, whether you're a student, a young professional, a seasoned entrepreneur, or a senior professional, wherever you are within that career chain, this is for you. And so to not hesitate and to come along.
Yeah, and I know we were talking about the gala and the keynote. What are you excited about with your trip and coming to New York?
I think what I'm most excited about is the fact that after the last 2 years, the opportunity for Sangat to really get together, you know, the sparks that fly when we're actually together, it's what Sikhi actually is all about, and Punjabi do best. And I think the last 2 years have been really hard, but it will make what's about to happen on April 1st even more special.
Yeah, and this is going to be a special event for us as well, because we're doing this after 2 years in-person event. And we were just kind of always, did this from 2012 onwards, and this is our flagship event. And from last 2 years, it was so sad not to be able to do it in person. And even here, the entire Sixth Chamber community is very excited about doing this in person and having you speak at our event.
And I feel the same. We're going to make it special.
Thank you, Mandeep.